Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Springer Nature Black Employee Network Speaker Series. My name is Devin Williams, and I'm the Associate Marketing Manager for the Nature Portfolio. Today, for our first episode of the series, I'm joined by Professor Antonio T. Baines from North Carolina Central University. Today I'm just going to be asking you a few questions about your experiences in your career, if that's all right with you.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, fabulous. So to start off, how long have you been working at North Carolina Central University, and what are your roles and responsibilities?
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you again for this invitation. I really appreciate it and honored to be able to share some of my experiences with you and your audience. I am an associate professor at North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina, and I've been there for about 14 years now. I'm currently working on my 15th year, and as an associate professor, I teach. I teach undergraduate and graduate courses. And I also conduct research. So I'm a cancer pharmacologist slash toxicologist by training. So I do cancer research, specifically on pancreatic cancer. And so teach, have a research lab, do research, conduct research, and then lastly, service on campus and different organizations and off campus as well. And so, so doing various service on and off campus in the various communities in North Carolina and beyond.
Oh, that sounds great, and congratulations on going on 15 years.
Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun, most of the time. And but no, it's been good. It's been good. I mean, I wanted to go in academia. I really enjoy working with students and helping to set up the next generation of physicians and scientists and pharmacists and physical therapists. Dentists, you name it. So I'm really passionate about helping to help that next generation go into the sciences. So academia has been a good place for me over the years, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I mean, it's never a dull moment. You never know what will happen or what will be happening on a particular day, but I enjoy that atmosphere of being in an intellectual environment and helping to mold minds for their future. So it's been a good 14, almost 15 years.
Well, that sounds excellent. And have you always been located in North Carolina, or did you move there? I'm just wondering.
Right, right. Well, actually, I've done a little, I guess you can call me a little nomad because I've done my experience of traveling. So I was born in New Jersey, but lived all my Camden, New Jersey. So I was born in New Jersey. Mom just happened to be there at the time, and I came a little early. I guess I got impatient. So I was born in New Jersey, but lived all my life in Virginia, the Eastern Shore of Virginia. It's like an hour from Norfolk, Virginia Beach, the area, rural country area. So I spent most of my upbringing in Virginia and went to school in Norfolk. Went to school, college at Norfolk State University in Norfolk, Virginia. Behold the green and gold. Behold the green and gold for any Spartans on the line. And then after finishing there, went all the way to the West Coast, Southwest to Arizona, specifically Tucson, Arizona, and did earned a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology doing colon cancer research at the University of Arizona. So go Wildcats for any U of A folks listening. So I did my PhD there, and then after finishing up there, came back to the East Coast, because I wanted to be close to my family in Virginia and along the East Coast. So I came back to the East Coast, and that's when I came to North Carolina for my postdoctoral fellowship. So I did a postdoc at UNC Chapel Hill at the Lineberger Comprehensive Cancer Center, and started that way 2001. 2001. So I started September 2001. Unfortunately, unfortunately that date sticks in my mind because that was around 9/11. That was around 9/11. So I started my postdoc unfortunately that month of 9/11. So been in North Carolina since 2001. So what? Almost 20 years, about 20 years. So yeah. So I've been here, and basically my training brought me here, and this is where I currently live with my family.
So to circle back, I'd just like to ask you, what would you say are your three most gratifying accomplishments?
Hmm. Hmm. So I would say the first one is being able to uh, increase the number of students going into the sciences, especially students of color. So again, I chose academia, so again, my PhD is in pharmacology and toxicology, and I would say most of my classmates went into industry. That's what most of us do with that type of degree, go into industry. But I had this desire to work with students, and so that's what led me go down the academic path. And so I would say one of my greatest accomplishments is being able to have students and mentees who are now physicians, who are now scientists, MDs, PhDs, PharmDs, DDSs, epidemiologists. I mean, working all across the country. And so I would say that's one of my greatest achievements and accomplishments, is being able to know that I was able to help mold students to go into the sciences and to fulfill their dreams. So that's one. I would say another, and all these are work in progress. I don't want to give the impression that it's just it's just a moment in time, but all these are still going on. And so one, definitely, being able to impact the next generation of scientists and physicians and healthcare workers. Another, I would say, achievement is to be able to add to the body of knowledge to help in finding better treatments for cancer, specifically GI cancers. So when I was in graduate school at the University of Arizona, Arizona Cancer Center, I studied colon cancer. When I came to UNC to do my postdoc, I started studying pancreatic cancer, and I'm still studying pancreatic cancer. And to know I've been able to add to the body of knowledge along with other collaborators. I mean, it's not a one-person show, but being able to add to the body of knowledge that hopefully will lead to better treatments and cures for these for cancer has been a huge achievement and accomplishment. Being able to add to the body of knowledge. And then lastly, and so again, research is important for me, and so I enjoy that. And then I would say the last accomplishment, which is still ongoing as well, is being able to use what I've learned in terms of schooling to be able to help my communities. And so I get asked many times to talk to students at the university, students in high school, community groups. November was Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and so there's been various times I've hosted community sessions to talk to the community about pancreatic cancer and other types of cancers and their health. And so being able to be a spokesperson and advocate, using my knowledge, my PhD to be able to represent the university on TV and radio and magazines and on the net, even there, just being able to use my platform to help educate the masses is a huge accomplishment and honor for me. So I would say those are the three most gratifying achievements that I am very honored and appreciative of. Again, being able to impact the next generation of students to go into their various scientific careers, being able to add to the body of knowledge that hopefully will lead to better treatments for cancers and other diseases. And then lastly, just again, being able to be a spokesperson, an advocate in terms of relaying information and knowledge to the masses as an educator, as a professor. So those I would say are my biggest achievements that are still ongoing. They're still ongoing.
Thank you, and they're great achievements, and you should certainly be proud of them. I mean, as you said, just assisting with shaping and molding your students, and then also as a researcher, just helping excel and that helping progress the research of pancreatic cancer and various other facets of research, and then of course helping your communities. I mean, I'm sure just being able to, as you said, educate the masses, and between education awareness, I'm sure that goes a long way. So it's excellent work.
Yeah, unfortunately, minorities are not well represented in the sciences, in the STEM fields, and so there's a need for more of us in those areas. And so being able to contribute to that is really something I really am passionate about. Again, at least in the United States, African Americans make up about 13% of the population, but when it comes to medicine and other fields in the sciences, we're like 3, 4%, 5%. I mean, so totally not equal to the percentage that we make up in the country. And so again, there's definitely a need for more efforts to help increase diversity in the sciences. So I'm just happy to be a part of that small percentage and try and do my best to increase that percentage to find people to replace me because I'm getting old. 14, 15 years, I'm getting old, so I need people to replace me. So yeah.
No, I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon. And I'm glad you brought up representation and diversity because I wanted to ask you, what was your experience of diversity and inclusion in STEM when you started your career in comparison to now?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a great question. So it's a work in progress. I would say it's a work in progress when it comes to what I've experienced growing up to now. So high school, my high school was half and half roughly, um, majority, half black, half white, of other ethnic groups. But the classes I took, academic classes that I was fortunate to take, and AP classes, there was only very few of us. I was one of three, one of two, one of three, sometimes only one. So that was my high school experience. So even though the high school was basically half and half, distributed in terms of racial and ethnic groups, the classes I took unfortunately were not, which was unfortunate because I was like, what's going on? Why is that the case? And then I had the fortune of going to a historically black college and university, Norfolk State University, and which was majority African American, which was a great experience for me because I wanted to be around other brothers and sisters who were just as smart as me, who were just as smart as me and smarter. I needed to be in that environment, and I got it, and I was so happy about that at Norfolk State, being in the science honors program. And then I wanted to see diverse faculty. I wanted to see diverse professors because on some level I was like, I might like teaching, so I wanted to see that. So I had that experience as a college student being in the HBCU, which helped to build up my confidence, which was needed because when I left Norfolk State, I went to what you could say a different world. For those of you that are familiar with some of those Cosby shows, there was a spinoff called The Different World, where it focused on going to HBCU. And so it was a different world when I went to the University of Arizona because it's PWI, predominantly white institution. I think Tucson was like 3 or 4% black at that time. I don't think it's grown that much. I don't think. And so it was different. It was different. And so I was in this PhD pharmacology toxicology graduate program, and there was nobody that looked like me when I first got there. I was fortunate enough to come in to the program with a good friend of mine, African American female. She was in the master's program. I was in the PhD program, but we were the only two. So out of just maybe almost 70, 80 plus master's PhD graduate program, we were the only two in the program. And then when she graduated, a few years to go off to pharmacy school, I was there by myself. And so when I graduated, in 2001, I started in 1995. When I finished in 2001, I was the second African American to graduate from that program in its 30 years of history. I was the second one. So that just kind of let you know that there wasn't that many before me, and unfortunately, there haven't been that many after me. And then after I came back to the East Coast, I went to UNC Chapel Hill for my postdoc. I again went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, and again, we were not well represented at UNC Chapel Hill. Again, thankfully, there was a few more students I saw, because there was a higher population of African Americans in North Carolina than in Chapel Hill and in North Carolina than in Arizona. But again, the numbers were still low, especially in the STEM field. So obviously my experiences have gone up and down in terms of where I was part of the majority like at Norfolk State, or more likely the minority, as I was at again the University of Arizona and UNC Chapel Hill. But I think you have to get to the point where you have to be comfortable in your skin. And Norfolk State helped me with that. You have to be comfortable in your skin, and you have to get to the point where you realize you're here for a mission, you're here for a task, and you do what you have to do. And what you do is if you find groups that can support you. And so when I was in Tucson, I found support groups in the church, and student Black student organizations. A lot of the graduate students and medical students had their own little organizations at those schools. And so between church and finding those other organizations, you make your own community. You make your own community and find your own community. And so and that's what I did. And now being at NC Central University, which again is also a historically Black college and university, I'm in the majority again. But I'm also a professor, adjunct professor at UNC Chapel Hill. So it's funny, when I go to one campus, I'm the majority. When I go to the other campus, I'm the minority. So I tend to play along that continuum of majority minority a lot. So I feel like I'm very flexible and adaptable because of that experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it was definitely a balancing act at first, and I'm glad you were able to find those support groups to help you excel. And correct me if I'm wrong, did you say you were the first or the second in 30 years in Tucson?
I was the second. African American to graduate from that PhD program in 30 years. So I finished in 2001, and I knew the person that finished who was the first, because he happened to be my mentor. He was an African American male, a brother, and he was a graduate student in that program when I came out there during the summers as an undergraduate intern. And so he was my mentor. So that just shows you how mentorship is very important, because through his mentorship, I made a decision that, hey, I can do this. And so when I went out there for graduate school, I knew it could be done because I knew someone that had done it. So that helped. So yeah. And what's sad is that a lot of my students who graduate from undergrad and go on to these graduate programs and medical school and pharmacy schools, they're still dealing with those same issues. And they're still usually the first one, or one of very few. And it's unfortunate. And so I don't know how much progress has been made sometimes when I hear that my mentees have some of the same issues that I had when I was going through. So much work to do.
I agree. And that actually brings me to my next question, where do you feel in your experience that the conversation on race and STEM has been a priority in academia and in the corporate sphere?
I see you trying to get me fired. Okay. No, I'm playing. Thankfully, I got tenure. Thankfully, I got tenure. So I would say that it's a moving target, and it also is a work in progress. And again, going back to the example I just gave, that my mentees and students are sometimes having the same issues that I had, when I went to graduate school or did my postdoc, in terms of being the only one, in terms of microaggressions from the faculty as well as from your classmates. I've heard, some of the horror stories I've heard it just breaks my heart. Where I had one colleague who was doing extremely well, did extremely well on an exam, and the professor accused her of cheating. It's just horrible stories that I've heard and witnessed myself. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And how serious is academia and corporate America taking this? I don't know, because if they were taking it seriously, why we see sometimes these massive significant changes after horrific events like the George Floyd incident or murder? I'm just saying murder. Why these major changes that occur that occurred after that, as opposed of them occurring all along. Why is there a need for diversity officers? Or we need to hire a vice chancellor for diversity. And again, nothing against those positions or those persons in those positions, you know, and unfortunately we need them. We need them. But if things were progressing the way I would hope, you know, those positions shouldn't be needed. You know, you shouldn't need to, you know, to strongly encourage folks to play nice in the sandbox and to or to recruit more diverse faculty or to recruit more diverse students into your programs. Um, um, and so again, and then if you watch the news, you know, you hear some of these, you see some of these things, some of these events, and it's like, wow, how far have we really come? You know, especially, you know, January 6th. I mean, just throw it out there. I mean, again, how far have we come? How far have we come? How
Right.
far have we come? And I don't know. I don't know. So again, I'm not saying that we haven't made progress, because I know we've made progress, but I would have hoped to have, I would have hoped we could have made further progress in these past 20 years or so, you know, in terms of between when I finished my graduate work to now being an associate professor. I wish we could have made much more progress, but I feel like sometimes we haven't. We haven't, you know, because again, you know, you look at the numbers of students graduating from medical school, students getting accepted to medical school or graduate school. Those numbers are very low, and so again, I think I read a statistic that we produce more Black medical doctors 40 years ago than we do now. I think I remember seeing that in terms of we were more successful in producing, especially Black male doctors, about 40 years ago than we are now. And so again, you know, I think we have a long way to go. And again, it takes a team effort to make these changes. And so, you know, again, I think we've made progress, but I would just say we still have a long way to go.
I wonder why there was a decline. I didn't know that. And it's very interesting to hear. And I completely understand what you're saying as far as progression, where we're not where we would like to be. That's something. And then when you mentioned the major changes after an incident, it makes one wonder, well, was this proactive or is this reactive to what we see?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why I say I don't know where we are in terms of you know, again, the question is, you know, the question is, if it's not on, you know, I feel like there's many reasons. I feel like if you're not on, if something's not on your radar, you know, if you live in a very homogeneous neighborhood and work with a very homogeneous working group, then I don't know if concerns from other, you know, concerns about other groups hit your radar. And I think I think that this country, you know, is a very segregated country in terms of past, you know, laws and rules, housing segregation, everything. Because of all those things that happened in the past, it's forced this dynamic that you have to kind of like deliberately force your way out of to break the mold. And so, okay, if I live in this segregated neighborhood, okay, I gotta get out of this neighborhood to see folks that don't look like me sometimes. And work is sometimes the only place where people see other groups, other ethnic groups. And so, and then after that job is over, you go back to your you go back to your same, you know, abode. And so again, I think there's a lot that needs to be changed, and some of it I think is deliberate, and some of it is it needs to be there needs to be some proactiveness that occurs to break some of these molds to help you know, just increase diversity in academia, increase diversity in corporate America. Because again, for me, I believe this. I believe when everybody's at the table, especially, you know, I'm a researcher, I study cancer. I believe when everybody's at the table, we can find solutions quicker and faster. But if you just have one homogeneous population at the table, then you're going to only have one type of perspective, and that one perspective may not be what's needed to help solve a problem quicker. Whereas you have different perspectives, you know, and diversity means many different things. It's more than just skin color. I know society as soon as you said diversity, skin, it's like, okay, but there's much more than diversity than just how much melanin you have, in your cells. It's much
Absolutely.
more than that. It's gender, it's your livelihood, and so all those perspectives I think are important. And so I think when we all realize, when we bring all those together, we can make some serious progress when it comes to solving, disease, finding cures for diseases, solving technological problems, um, dealing with social problems, just again, there's so much that I think we can do together versus apart.
I agree. And when you have everyone at the table, as you said, those groups are taken into consideration because one
Absolutely.
group, it might not be malicious. One group just
Right.
might not have any idea of how certain
Right.
groups react as far as research or social issues, and those things need to be taken into consideration. So I completely
Absolutely.
agree with what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Um, and that actually brings me to my next question, which is what things would you change or think need to be changed within the industry for the betterment of Black colleagues of the next generation and the progression of those navigating their careers?
So, great question. I think representation is so important. I don't know if I would even be here talking to you or even have this opportunity, um, as a professor, as a scientist, as a researcher, if I didn't see folks that look like me doing what I'm doing now. If I didn't see that mentor, that graduate student, the African American male, if I didn't see him working hard in the laboratory and doing what he's doing, what he was doing at the time, I don't know I could have seen myself do that. So representation is so important. So I think you need representation, to help with, um, um, breaking down some of these walls. So you need representation and I think from the bottom all the way to the top. I think sometimes we focus on just, one. We sometimes focus on one specific location, but I think we need representation all throughout the leadership. So I would say that's one, change I would make is representation. Um, a second, um, change I would make is I think a lot of times we all work in silos. I know we see it a lot in academia, and I've from talking to my colleagues, corporate can be the same way. Corporate America can be the same way where you just focus on your task, you do your own thing. But I think it's important for us to get out of our silos and see what the other person does. To me, that's all about interdisciplinary, efforts, collaboration. So seeing what others do, because again, I think at the end of the day, we should try to, I think one thing that we all need to try to do is understand the other side. I think it's important to understand the other side, and it's hard to understand the other side if you just focusing on your own research, your own project, your own, if I'm just okay, I'm an engineer, so I'm just gonna focus. I'm just gonna hang out with the engineers. I'm not gonna hang out with the other. I'm not gonna hang out with the other scientists or hang out with, the humanities folks. I'm just gonna focus on just one thing and that alone. And I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. But for me, one of the terms that I've always kind of stuck with me, that I've learned, um, that I learned in high school in my English class was about being a Renaissance man. Trying to be able to do multiple things and appreciate multiple, folks and their talents. And so I think we should try to, all do all we can to be, well rounded as much as possible. And so for me, um, making sure representation is seen all throughout the leadership. Um, and again, diversity means many different things. So again, so that's one, representation, and two, I think, I'm trying to get out of our silos and try to really get to know the other person or the other group. Trying to see it from their perspective. I think just gives you just another tool in your toolkit to be able to, interact with others and form relationships. Because again, at the end of the day, I think it's about building relationships, networking, and but it's hard to do that if you don't, get out of your silos. And so for me, I would say those are two big things I would consider is the representation. Okay? You need to see folks that look like you, no matter who you are. I mean, you need to see that, and not just you need to see that. Others need to see that too. Others need to see that too, because if you don't ever see it, then is it possible? if there was never a President Barack Obama, there would still be questions. Can we really have a black president? Can we have a really African American president? You know, can he or she do really well? You know, I mean, the question's still being asked about, you know, women. Of course, we know women can be a great president, but until they until you have that representation, there's going to be doubts in some people's minds. And so representation is so important. And then I believe also, again, is reaching across the aisle, getting out of your silos, trying to understand the other side perspective to help. And why? To build relationships and networks that will hopefully bring everybody together.
And I agree with that sentiment as well. I think representation is very important. And I think getting out of the silos is important because you could apply that to almost any facet of life, just
Absolutely.
seeing the other side and trying to understand and then growing together with that understanding. Uh,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
with what you were saying, I was wondering what advice you would give Black graduates in your field of STEM.
Well, you know, I think anybody who's in STEM, I think the common link for all of us. I know it's not being a nerd. Okay, I know people might be thinking, "Oh, nerd, no, not about being a nerd." Although that's probably part of the progression to being a STEM person. But I would say that passion for asking questions, the passion for asking questions and trying to find the answers to those questions. You know, so I love asking questions. I probably ask way too many questions, which gets me in trouble sometimes. But I love asking questions. If you weren't doing this interview, I'll be asking you questions probably. But asking questions. So that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, that wanting to know why. Um, I think it's important to follow that passion. Follow that passion. And I would say that's, yeah, the passion has to be there. Okay, so if the passion is not there, and and you know, intelligence and all that's good too. But to me, I think the passion is really what makes a good scientist or engineer or you know, mathematician, whatever. It's that curiosity, the inquisitiveness. And so I would say that. So my first recommendation would be follow your heart, follow your passion. Don't do it because your mom and dad said do it, whatever. But follow that passion. And why is that passion important? That passion is important because STEM is hard. I mean, biology, you know, chemistry, pharmacology, toxicology, whatever, it's hard. Um, and there's going to be some tough days. There's going to be some tough classes and some tough days. And research, you know, research is a beast all by itself in terms of, you know, you do an experiment, it doesn't work, you do it again, it doesn't work, you know, and so the passion is what causes you to come back the next day and try it again. And so the passion is important. So I would say that's one I would recommend. Two, hard work. There is just no way that I think you can get in this field without working hard. Now, working hard is, you know, working hard can mean, you know, again, it's not working hard like you breaking boulders with a hammer. It's not that type of hard. It could be. I mean, thankfully, it's not. but it's more like mental. It's more mental. It's more mental strength and capacity. You know, you're trying to think through problems. You're trying to solve problems. And so working hard is important. Taking as much math and science early on is important because because it's about thinking logically. And those classes help you to start thinking critical thinking, logical thinking. Those classes are important. So getting as much math and science as you can earlier on, you know, helps to build that foundation. Because all you're doing is building upon that foundation. That's all you're doing, building upon that foundation. So you know, trying to strengthen that foundation with those courses in the beginning are important. So math and science courses, and then also, like I say, you need a mentor. You also need a mentor. You need role models and mentors. Those, because you can't do it by yourself. I mean, again, you probably would not be talking to me today if I didn't have any mentors and role models that encourage me, not only during those good times but those bad times as well. You know, then, you know, hey, you know, we all make mistakes. You know, you brush yourself off, get back up, and do it again. You can do it. And and having a team of role models, a team of mentors, is important. So to me, I would say those are the three big things. One, having that passion for discovery, that inquisitive mind, that curiosity. That's one. Following your heart and your passion. Two, definitely working hard. you're going to have to work hard. But anything worth having takes time. It took me. I talk to students sometimes and tell them my path. They say, "Wow, that took so long." Like, well, yeah, I mean, but but if you can get this, but if you can spend this time getting this education, then you can spend the rest of your life doing what you enjoy doing. And so, so again, working hard, and then lastly, forming a team of mentors and role models to encourage you and support you as you go down this path. I think those will be the three big pieces of advice I would give for someone interested in going into the sciences, or going into biology, or going into cancer research, or pharmacology, toxicology. Those are the things I would suggest.
That makes sense, and that sounds great, especially as far as the passion and role models, um, and just having that mentorship. And I want to know, do you have any role models that inspired your career? And if so, how did they impact your efforts? How did their efforts impact you? I know you said you had a few. You might not be sitting here with me if you didn't have any.
That's true. No, I mean that. I mean that sincerely. That if it weren't for some of them, I would not be here. You'd be talking to someone else. So I've had many. I mean, and there's so many. I mean, there's just so many I can't even remember them all. But I remember. I'll start with my parents. Of course, my parents. They were great mentors and role models. I know they weren't scientists. They didn't have PhDs. Nothing like that, but they worked hard. And I saw that how hard they worked in their different lives, and that encouraged me. And so my dad was a welder, and a machinist, and my mom was a housewife, but she worked hard at home, and that's a job all in itself, and raising the kids. I mean, so I saw how hard they both worked, to provide for me and my siblings, and that so that was my first example of role models, and they were very supportive. Again, I liked science. As far as I can remember, I liked science, and just to show you how much they supported me, even though it may sound kind of crazy, uh, you know. For those of us that like science, we ask for sometimes chemistry sets. Okay, I have a chemistry set for Christmas, and so they gave me a chemistry set. But I was so crazy. I was so crazy in love with science that not only a chemistry set wasn't enough for me. I actually asked for a physics set. I asked for a physics. Yeah, I know that's
No.
funny to me. I know. I'm like, thankfully I didn't become a physicist. Woo! But I asked for a physics set, and they got it. They got me a physics set. So again, just showing you, that the love and support they have for me, and supporting my weird interest, at that time. And then high school, I had this awesome high school teacher. I mean, and I've had role models and mentors all throughout, but I'm just skipping around. High school had this awesome biology teacher. His name was George Watermeyer. And for those of you that may be familiar with it's a very old movie called The Dead Poets Society. That was the teacher in that movie. It was like a private prep school, and the teacher in that movie was Robin Williams, and he was just this amazing, like just amazing, weird, um, um, out of the box teacher, and that was how my biology teacher was, and that was what I needed to just like, hey, I want to do this. I want to be a biology teacher because I want to be just like him. So great role model. And then I had the opportunity to do research when I was in high school. I happened to live near an agricultural research station that did research on plants, and there was a plant pathologist there, and through networking, my high school teachers, the biology teacher, his wife was the scientist technician. And so the teacher talked to his wife about me, and next thing I know, I'm getting asked, hey, you want to come out for the summer and work under my boss, who's a plant pathologist? He was a plant pathologist for Virginia Tech University, and again, we had this research station near my house, and so during the summers, I worked under him. So I worked under a scientist as a junior in high school, and that was just an unbelievable experience because that was my first time working under a scientist, doing research. And he was an
Yeah.
awesome teacher and a researcher. And so that experience was just amazing. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity. And then going to college, having great professors in college that worked with me and made sure I knew my science and that I could communicate well. And then going to graduate school, having great mentors. There was this lady who's a good friend of mine. She's like a mommy, auntie, who's a physician, who works in a pharmaceutical company now, but she's a physician, and just was very impactful for me during my time in graduate school. I mean, she would go out, she would travel all the time, but when she came in town, she would take me out for dinner to encourage me. Normally I was a poor grad student, starving. Just things like that really have left a tremendous impact on my life. And so, tons of mentors, tons of role models, and I can't thank them all. And so the only way I can thank them is by paying it forward with the next generation. So that's why I work so hard trying to work with students, because that's just the way I can pay all those folks to help get me to where I am now. And so so role models, mentors, having a team of them was essential for me, and still essential. I still use mentors and role models to this day to help encourage me as I travel down this path of academia and trying to help the next generation of students. So yeah.
And I think your story is a textbook example of why they're so important. I mean, even in the beginning, of course, you had your parents' support, which is fantastic. And then you also had your high school teacher who inspired you and, gave you that drive and that passion that you were talking about, which then propelled you to college. And of course, grad school and the mentors you would meet along the way. So it's amazing to hear.
Yeah. Again, at the end of the day, I think, so my success is the success of many that was poured into me. So yeah, so it's definitely something I'm very humbled by, and try to do my best to pour into future generations. Again, keep that legacy alive of that mentorship and encouragement that is needed for helping to increase diversity in the sciences and in all occupations and academia, corporate America, all that's needed.
I agree, and thank you. I'd like to just ask you one last question, and it's
Overall, already? What? No,
it's evident that in Black history, Black inventions are all too often forgotten. Would you be able to tell me which inventor's history and story that resonates with you?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. So yeah. So happy Black History Month. Yes. And this country needs to be reminded of all the many contributions that that Black people have made to this country and to this world. And unfortunately, I'm still learning a lot myself. And so and why is this important? I think it's important because if you know your history, it helps to give you that confidence to to be able to push through your present situation and to prepare for your future. So I think knowing the past is extremely important for all of us to know, not just for Black people to know, for everybody to know. Again, it just helps with that whole appreciation and perspective. And so so Black history is really important. My only regret is that wish it wasn't just focused on 1 month of the year, the shortest month of the year. But that's another interview. But but I'm happy that there is some opportunity to highlight many of the successes of Black people to help make this country and this world, excuse me, in this world. And so for me, I think I connect the most with Dr. George Washington Carver. So for those that may not remember, excuse me, he was a professor and a scientist. He was a professor at Tuskegee Institute, it's Tuskegee University now, but in the past it was Tuskegee Institute. And he was a chemist. He was an agricultural scientist. He, I think, helped to develop almost like 300 uses of peanuts. He studied sweet potatoes, and I think I connect with him. I think I connect with him in many ways. So one, he was from my readings, he would seem to be like a mild mannered man, and I think that best describes me. And so that's one connection. Two, he was a professor at a HBCU, and so am I. He was at Tuskegee, and I'm at North Carolina Central University. And because because I'm at NC Central, he was at Tuskegee. That meant he helped to mold many students, especially students of color, into different areas, especially the sciences. And so I connect with him on that level as well. And so so I think I connect with him. Of all the folks I think about him. I think I connect with him the most because of just that connection of being an educator, a researcher, a mentor, an advocate for his people, that really resonates with me. And so now, one fun fact, think about peanuts, you probably think, well, he probably was also involved in peanut butter, and he wasn't. So he didn't make peanut butter. He didn't come up with that invention, but he came up with a whole bunch of other inventions with peanuts. And also, I think he worked with helping to come up with different ways to rotate the soil, to help replenish nutrients in the soil for farmers. So he had a serious impact. And I think about me, although I chose not to go down that plant science pathway, although I worked under a plant pathologist, one of my mentees, actually a high school student at that time, I had a high school student that used to work in my laboratory. She went on to Howard University, got her BS, I think, in biology, and she's now currently working on a PhD in plant sciences, plant biology at NC State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. So another connection, so although I'm not in that plant biology space, I've helped to produce a student who is going to be in that space and who will one day be a scientist, a plant scientist. And so yes, that's I would say George Washington Carver. Dr. George Washington Carver is probably an inventor, a past Black scientist that I find myself connected to a lot.
That's an excellent choice, and I'm sure it's amazing to see one of your former students go on into plant biology.
It is. So, I mean, and again, she worked in my lab when she was a high school student. So again, one, that just shows you how old I am. But two, to be able to have an impact on a student. I mean, again, it's not that I made her do this. It's something that she chose, she wanted to do, and to be, and to see her in that is very gratifying. It's very gratifying. It's very gratifying to know that the little bit that I did add into her has led her down this path to what she's doing now. And not just her, many of them. One of my other mentees is my colleague at UNC Chapel Hill. So I'm an adjunct professor at UNC Chapel Hill. My primary appointment is at NC Central. But one of my mentees is now a pediatric anesthesiologist at UNC. So she's a colleague. She worked in my, as an undergrad, she worked in my research lab. I took her to a conference, and she she won a poster session. She won first place in the poster session. And now she's a colleague. She's gone through her training, Harvard, Hopkins, Duke, and now she's a colleague of mine at UNC Chapel Hill. So again, I just and I have many mentees. That's why I'm not calling anybody's name, because I don't want to get in trouble. But I have many mentees that have done well, and I'm just so proud of all of them and all that they're doing. So that brings it all full circle, is when I'm able to see a student do their thing, especially in the sciences.
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to be amazing to see. And just to touch back on a point you made before about learning and still learning about the history, that's something that resonated with me because I'm still learning. I think there are a lot of individuals where, as far as Black history is concerned, um, most of the information that we learn about Black history has been received in school, at least in my
Right.
case.
Right.
Most of it has been through family or my own reading. So it's
Right.
definitely a process, and just learn. As you said, time goes on and we're still learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I just think it's important for all students to learn about everybody's history. And unfortunately, our history hasn't always been shared as it should have been. But again, I think when you learn everybody's history, then you can have a better appreciation of everybody's contribution to this country and to this world. And hopefully that knowledge in itself will help, again, break down those silos and bring people together to network and form good relationships. So, and the idea is sustainable. Again, we were talking about these changes in academia and corporate America. Have things changed, over the years? I think things have changed moment by moment, but I feel like we need to focus on having these sustainable changes. These sustainable changes that is not impacted necessarily because one event happens or event doesn't happen. It's just these sustainable changes. And I think we've done a lot of moment changes. Oh, something happened. George Floyd died. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And then after that moment disappears, nothing happens until the next moment. But I think if we focus more on these sustainable changes, then I think that's what we need to aim for. I think that's what we need to aim for as it relates to diversity and making things better.
Absolutely. And learning and breaking out of those silos are definitely part of laying that foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Professor, I'd just like to say it was a pleasure speaking with you today. And thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Well, thank you again for the invitation to speak to you and to your audience. I want to thank the organizers again for this. I think it's a great activity that you're doing, and I hope you continue. And I just want to say, if I can ever help anybody who happens to see this, if I can ever help you in any way, please don't be afraid to contact me. I'm at NC Central University, again, in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm also adjunct at UNC Chapel Hill in pharmacology, so feel free to reach out. But again, I'm just passionate about helping, especially students, get to that next level. So if I can help out in any way, let me know.
Thank you again, Professor Baines, and please continue to do all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
You too.